Welcome to the Explainer. You know, in cybersecurity, there's this huge cat and mouse game. But what happens when the bad guys are hiding right out in the open? When the very tools we use to protect our privacy are the same ones they use to hide their attacks? That's what we're digging into today. How to find the bad stuff in encrypted traffic.
All right, let's really get into this because this is the big one. It's the central problem for cybersecurity right now. That encryption that keeps your bank details safe, that keeps your messages private, yeah, well, it's the exact same tech that criminals are using to cover their tracks.
And that tension, that's what we're calling the encryption paradox. It really is a double-edged sword. So let's break it down and figure out why all our old security tricks they just don't work anymore.
So, look, on one hand, you've got encryption. It's the absolute foundation of our privacy online. We need it. But for the systems that are supposed to be spotting threats, it's like someone just flipped a switch and turned out all the lights. Suddenly, there's this massive blind spot where all sorts of nasty stuff can hide and operate, completely invisible.
Yeah, just think about how we used to do this. The old security tools would do something called deep packet inspection. Fancy name, but it basically just means they'd read the content of your internet traffic, looking for red flags. But now, with encryption, all that content is just a jumbled, scrambled mess. So those old methods, they're basically obsolete now. Okay, so if we can't look inside the traffic anymore, how in the world are we supposed to find the threats? Well, that brings us to a totally new way of thinking. It's like training a digital bloodhound to sniff out the bad guys by just following the trail, without ever having to open the package. And the basic idea here is actually pretty clever. Forget about trying to read the letter inside the envelope. That's private, right? Instead, let's just analyze the envelope itself. You know, the patterns, the characteristics of how it's being sent. That's where the clues are. So this envelope, in the tech world, we call that flow metadata. It's all the info about the communication, but not the communication itself. Things like, how big are the data packets? How long did the connection last? What's the timing between them? It turns out this stuff is a goldmine of clues if you know how to read it.
Right, so who are these new detectives that can read the envelopes? You guessed it, this is where machine learning makes its grand entrance. We can now train these incredibly powerful AI models to sift through millions, even billions of these metadata envelopes and teach them to spot those super subtle patterns that scream, hey, something's not right here.
And one of our star detectives is a model called XGBoost. Now, you can think of this one as a hyper-focused specialist. It works by building a whole series of decision trees. But here's the cool part. Each new tree it builds is specifically designed to fix the mistakes the last one made. It's this process of just relentlessly correcting itself that makes it, incredibly accurate. Then you've got another brilliant approach called random forest. Now, if XGBoost is the lone genius specialist, random forest is all about the wisdom of the crowd. It basically builds hundreds of different decision trees, looks at the problem from all these different angles, and then it just takes a vote. The majority opinion wins. And that diversity makes its final decision super robust. But, and this is a big but, these amazing AI detectives have a major catch, a real problem. They can tell you the answer, but they can't tell you how they got it. And this is what everyone in the field calls the black box problem. I mean, think about it. The XGBoost model might flag something and say, I am 99.9% sure this is malicious. But if an analyst turns around and asks, okay, why? The model just can't answer. It's literally a black box. You get an answer out, but you have no idea what happened inside. And this brings up a massive question for the folks on the front lines, the security analysts. Can you really take a drastic action? I'm talking shutting down a critical server, all based on an alert that you can't understand? Of course not. This lack of transparency, it's a huge, huge barrier to trusting these systems. So how do we fix this trust problem? Well, researchers have turned to this amazing field called explainable AI, or XAI for short. The whole goal is pretty simple, really, to crack open that black box and finally get the detective to show us its homework. And the key to doing this is a tool called SHAP. Now, SHAP is a total game changer. Think of it like a universal translator for the black box. For literally any decision the AI makes, SHAP can turn around and tell us exactly which clues were the most important. It can say, hey, this piece of metadata pushed the decision this way, and that piece pushed it that way. What's really neat is that SHAP doesn't mess with the model at all. It just works right alongside it.
So the AI model does its thing, makes its prediction, and then SHAP takes the exact same data and spits out a clear, simple explanation that an actual human can understand.
So, what happens when you put these two things together? When you combine the insane accuracy of these black box models with the crystal clear transparency of SHAP? Well, the results are, and I'm not exaggerating here, a complete game changer for cybersecurity.
Okay, first things first, let's talk performance. I mean, just look at these numbers. The models were just exceptionally good at finding the bad stuff. And that XGBoost model we talked about, it really knocked it out of the park with just outstanding results all around. No, seriously, just look at that number, 99.94%. In testing, that's the peak accuracy the XGBoost model hit. That is an absolutely insane level of precision. We're talking about finding a single needle in a gigantic, ever-changing haystack of internet traffic. But here's where it gets really cool. Because now, for the first time, we can see exactly why it's so accurate. The SHAP analysis lifts the hood and shows us precisely which features the model cared about the most. Things like the total forward packets and the destination port. These were the biggest clues. And having this kind of transparency is huge because it lets us translate the model's thinking into real intelligence we can act on. So when the AI flags a botnet, SHAP can tell us it's because I saw these really weird session patterns. If it spots a DDoS attack, it can point to these super high packet rates. All of a sudden, the human analysts have concrete evidence they can actually work with.
So let's zoom out a bit. What does this all mean for the future, for keeping our digital world safe? Well, it really feels like we're looking at a brand new era for security. What it really means is that we don't have to make that impossible choice between a system that's powerful and a system we can understand. We can have both. We can build security systems where analysts actually trust the alerts they get from the AI, which means they can respond way faster and much more accurately. It's opening the door to a whole new generation of security that is not only powerful, but also accountable.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway here. As our AI gets smarter and smarter, it's becoming clear that just being smart isn't enough. For AI to really make a difference in high-stakes fields like cybersecurity, where the decisions matter so much, maybe, just maybe, transparency is the most important feature of all.